undisputed queen of the Adriatic Sea for more than 1,000 years, thanks to its architecture and cultural heritage, universally recognized as one of the most beautiful cities in the world. Since 1987, part of the UNESCO World Heritage. For centuries refined the European city, its colorful carnival is well known worldwide. Its art influenced history forever. Thousands-year-old traditions, elegant clubs, international museums, stunning views you cannot find anywhere else. The journey you have to do at least once in a lifetime. In one word, Venezia! The historical Venice, well known all over the world, rises in the middle of a lagoon, on 121 islands, separated by 177 canals, connected by 436 bridges. Heart of the old town is St. Mark's Square. The Cathedral of St. Mark has been overlooking the square for almost 1,000 years. It is gold-plated and has beautiful mosaics that tell the story of the city. Unfortunately, inside no photos and videos allowed. This is the entrance of the church. Imagine what you are going to find inside. But here is the line outside. From the terrace of the museum of the cathedral, you have an amazing view over St. Mark's Square and the Doge's Palace, an interesting museum where I have been told I must keep my camera stable. So here is just a glimpse of what you can find. From the prisons of the palace, a narrow hallway leads to the well-known Bridge of Sighs, whose name refers to the sigh of the prisoners looking out at the Venetian lagoon for the last time before they went to jail. The clock tower overlooks St. Mark's Square. Its huge astronomical clock is an engineering masterpiece. But on the opposite side of the square, right in front of the clock tower, there's a second tower, really famous. I barely need to introduce it. I bet you have seen thousands of pictures with... Well, just a second. Yes, of course you know it. It's St. Mark's Bell Tower, one of the tallest in Italy. From up there, the panorama of the city and the lagoon is astonishing. And there are also interesting stories to tell. Let's have a look. In the early 1600s you could see the distant objects as they were close thanks to some special glasses. We are in 1609, Galileo Galilei is thinking about how to improve these glasses, and he had a revolutionary idea. He created the first telescope in history. From this very tower he wanted to show the benefits his invention could give to the Republic of Venice in the military field. Thanks to the telescope, he was granted chair at the University of Padua and a raise of his salary. But he also wanted to use his telescope for scientific and astronomical purposes. So, right from here, he pointed his telescope to the sky to look at it. And he discovered many things about the Moon, about Jupiter, about the Milky Way. This means he contributed a lot to the universal knowledge. Well, I'm not a scientist, and of course I'm not Galileo, so I'm not going to look at the sky. But I can assure you that even if you look down, it's a spectacular view. Thousands of visitors from all over the world pour out to attend the Carnival of Venice, a gigantic feast running over 1,000 years through the streets and the squares of Venice, with many shows, carnival masks, and any kind of event and performance anytime.
Siamo circa a metà del Cinquecento.
We are in the middle of the 16th century. During the carnival celebration, a young athlete from Turkey walked along a rope stretched from a docked boat to the St. Mark's Bell Tower. The crowd is in ecstasy, and from that moment on, the show of the tightrope walker is a must of every carnival edition. Nowadays, the tightrope walkers have been replaced by celebrities fastened to a cable that runs from the bell tower to St. Mark's Square. This is called the Eagle Flight. People swarm St. Mark's Square and the surrounding streets. Everyone wants to attend the carnival parade. A heartfelt moment for the Venetians is the so-called Svolo del Leon, the flight of the lion. A huge cloth representing a winged lion, the icon of Venice, is flapped over the square. There are theatrical pieces on the streets, concerts, and the celebration goes on beyond the sunset in the many Venetian buildings where there are private parties and masked balls. There's a business that have made Venice popular worldwide, the business of the glass artworks. More than 1,000 years ago, the locals learned this art from the Asians. And nowadays there's a place that is equivalent and a guarantee of a high-quality glass products. And I'm going right there. Actually, the fame of Murano rose because the old town of Venice needed to be protected, since the furnaces of the glass factories often caused huge fires. Besides, the ancient Republic of Venice gathered the factories in Murano to better preserve and control a business that made its fortune. The glassmasters benefited of many perks. For instance, they were allowed to marry a girl of the high society. And that's why the class of glassmasters became the most coveted. In the early 1500s, 3,000 people in 7,000 residents worked in a glass factory. Walking down the streets of Murano, you can find a lot of glass workshops, where you can see how they create glass artworks. Yeah, we all bit. Experienced glassmasters and assistants work in this workshop, while they explain how they can create such beautiful artworks that are popular worldwide. And if you think that I'm cutting the boring stuff in the editing of this video to show you only the main moments, well, you're wrong. This glassmaster is really a prodigy of great ability and speed. In about 15-20 minutes he has made about 8-10 pieces. You wanna prove? Okay, look at this. So in 1 minute and 26 seconds he has made a glass horse, and not just one. After seeing these artists at work, I feel a bit of an artist too, and I decide I'll go visit some of the most interesting museums of the city. I want to discover more about the story of Venice and its influence on art worldwide, and the Museum of Carezzonico is the right place.
Per secoli Venezia è stata
Venice has been one of the most refined cities in Europe for centuries, with a strong influence on art, architecture, and especially on painting. Just think about Paolo Veronese, Paolo Veneziano, Tintoretto, Tiziano, Lorenzo Lotto, just to mention few, Giorgione, but not only painters. Let's think about Antonio Canova, Antonio Vivaldi, and so on. During the 18th century, Venice is maybe the most important city in the world from an artistic and cultural perspective. Here in Venice, a school of painters was born in the 17th century. I can call it the genre of landscape, and especially a painter from Venice emerged, Canaletto. For the first time in the history of painting, the landscape, nature or a city, is the crucial element of a painting, and not just a background of the human action or the background of a religious theme painting. From that moment on, the landscape has a key role in painting, and therefore the landscape began to gain more and more attention, and the painters started to travel to discover more interesting landscapes. A journey began to be considered as an educational experience. The trend of the Grand Tour began to spread. The Grand Tour was the journey that from the 17th century on, every European rich descendant had to do in order to complete his education, and in order to be considered a man. By the way, the word tourism comes from the Grand Tour, and Venice was a crucial stopover on the Grand Tour. Many books about the Grand Tour were written, books that years later will be considered as the first tourist guides. But not just this, lots of masters of literature wrote about Venice. Stendhal, Lord Byron, Proust, Goethe, Mann, D'Annunzio, Pirandello, Dostoevsky, Hemingway, and I could go on like this for a week. The point is that from that moment on, artists began to document their journeys, and so we can speak about the first travel documentaries. So I am here today, doing what I do, telling you about Venice, because I owe this to Venice, because here everything has begun. Other museums you cannot miss are the Correr Museum, the Accademia Gallery of Venice and the Venetian seat of the Peggy Guggenheim Museum.